My face is smiling so big, my mouth anyway, that my face hurts. Clara Hughes, you're known for like a face-breaking smile, though.
Well, we're getting a cheek workout.
A cheek workout.
Because I'm smiling, too. Thanks for having me on the show, Ryan.
Welcome to Ched.
Thanks.
Congratulations on your new book, Open Heart, Open Mind. Everybody's talking about it for several different reasons. You're a beloved Canadian. I think it's safe to say an athlete in both the Winter and Summer Games. As a matter of fact, the first Canadian athlete to medal in both the Winter and the Summer Games. Did that change your life? Even that accomplished? I was going to say that little thing right there. Not so little, but was that a huge game changer for you when you became a multi-sport, multi-medal winning athlete?
No, you know what? A lot of people, even before, when I initially made the Winter Olympics, are like, "You're the seventh Canadian to make the Summer and Winter Games," and then I went and won a medal, and then you're the first Canadian. And I've never set out to be the number whatever of doing whatever. I've just always set out to do what interests me, what was in my gut, what was my passion. And from a teenager, I always dreamed of skating for Canada. So for me, it wasn't even winning the medal. It was being on that ice in the Canadian skin suit, living out this outrageous, audacious dream that started when I was 16 years old, when I saw Gaetan Boucher skate in Calgary and was doing everything wrong. And it totally changed my life and put me definitely on a better track and led me in a completely different direction. It took so many years later, 14 years later, and a whole other Olympic sport and all these experiences later to actually be there doing it. So it definitely didn't change my life. And then it was funny too, because I had essentially given up my job as a professional cyclist to be the speed skater, which, I mean, a job as a professional female cyclist, let's put it in perspective. I'm not a NHL hockey player or baseball player, anything like that. Like,
you're talking just purely based on salary.
I'm talking salary. Like, I was stoked when I signed my first contract for $7,000. Like, I left
and then
home.
They screwed you out of half of it.
I know,
as
and
you
then
write
I lost
about.
half of it because the team folded. But it was just like, for me, it was never, ever about the money. And a lot of people, after I did achieve that, I guess, pretty big thing of winning the medals in summer and winter, they're like, I had banks calling me up and investing people like, we want to manage your money. I'm like, I have no money. Like, I don't have any money for you to manage because I have no sponsors. So it's just, I guess the struggling artist, the struggling athlete, they're kind of one and the same in Canada. And you're lucky to pursue either. And that's how I saw it. I'm so fortunate and grateful to have the opportunity as a female on planet Earth, as a person on this earth where there's so much poverty, there's so much struggle, there's so much war. There are places in the world where girls are not supported or allowed to even think of dreaming of doing something like pursue sports. So it's just incredible to be Canadian and to have these opportunities. And I've always felt that way.
I'm hoping that in the next 20 minutes we can accurately tell the story of your life to give people an understanding of how much more you are than just this huge smiling face on billboards, than just the athlete that stands atop that podium that's made Canadians so proud. This is an intensely personal, it's almost a journal of sorts. When you get into this book, I find as a reader, you became more and more and more relatable. When do I ever read about an Olympic athlete testifying in their own words, in their own book, about chain-smoking cigarettes or drinking vodka till they puke or winning Olympic medals, then going back to drinking? Yeah. You stated at one point in your book to portray how serious you were about your athletic pursuits. You were so serious that you decided to quit smoking. You don't hear that all the time.
Look, Ryan, I'm from Winnipeg. I'm from Elmwood. Anybody in Edmonton that knows Winnipeg knows what I'm talking about. But honestly, I think for me the most important thing was to really show myself, warts and all. And this is where I come from. This is what I've done. You've seen what I've done. We watch the Olympics. We follow our Olympians. I'm an avid, rabid Olympic fan, winter and summer myself. But we rarely know what happens behind the scenes or where someone comes from. And I guess I hope and I felt that if I can really show and share where I come from and what I've been through and what I continue to struggle with, a lot of these things are just, they'll continue to be life struggles. If I can show that, and show all these flaws as well as, the successes and the beautiful moments, I can humanize this pursuit of excellence and let people know that everybody struggles and you're not alone. And that's the most important thing for me, is to show that I am by no means perfect. I've made so many mistakes. I've tried to learn from them. I've tried to grow from them. And also the places where I've found inspiration, which a lot of people would find maybe unusual, but these are things that, and communities and people and groups and that make me so proud to be Canadian, to be, here on this same land as so many of the most amazing people in the Aboriginal community.
Well, you're teeing this up. I mean, let's go there right now, because you open your book. I mean, and throughout your book, you write about not just the connection that you've had with Canada's First Peoples, but the enormous role that some elders and some communities have played in fueling your passion, and in some instances directly giving you the focus you needed to achieve at an elite level.
Yeah, and the first chapters of the book talks about Vancouver, because as an athlete, experiencing that was absolutely the center of the Olympic universe for me, absolutely, for my lifetime, because I was there living it. But it was also so stressful. You're trying to prepare, trying to bring yourself into my events that were 4 and 7 minutes long. Like, how am I going to do this? This is a chance of a lifetime. And as the games approached, and then I, was named flag bearer, and just realized that press conference announcing the flag bearer, that this is a much bigger responsibility than I ever imagined. And all of a sudden I'm being asked about all the controversy, all the building, all the over budget, all the over everything that, is the negative focus leading into any major games. And all of a sudden I felt like I was expected to be an expert on it, and then introduced by the CBC National News as the drunken teenager from Winnipeg. And I was kind of I'm a little bit more than that, but I'm also I'm not shy. That's where I come from, and I'm really proud of that. I come from a lot of dysfunction, and I've gone through a lot and learned a lot and been able to grow and to express myself in the world of sport. But I was kind of this is too much for me. I just wanted to go. I skate around and I turn left and I change lanes. And I'm really good at that, and that's kind of all I want to do right now, and I want to hide, because it was so much pressure, and it just became so real, and I wondered if I could handle it. And my friend Tawani Joseph, who at the time was the CEO of the Four Host First Nations, where all of the events and the medals in the Olympics were happening on their territorial land in the West Coast, and I had a friendship with them that started when I just wanted to get rooted in the West Coast. I wanted to learn that part of Canada, and what better way from the First People. So I got to spend time with, the kids at the Oval. We had a skate day for Aboriginal youth and just had different things, and a friendship grew. And he saw me all stressed out on the news, and he's sent a note, said, hey, all of our Aboriginal Vanuc workers we've gone through a brushing off ceremony because we're pretty stressed out through this whole process and felt like we needed to clear our minds and clear our hearts for the games. And this is one of our traditional ceremonies for that. And they offered it to me. And days before, I can't remember, it was 4 or 5 days before the opening ceremony, we went to the Squamish First Nation on the North Shore, and my husband and my really close core team members and support network came with me, and I walked out of there just feeling so completely open and ready and loved, and it was just the perfect launching point for what unfolded in our country and our nation, and how we showed ourselves to the world. And the elder, for me, one of the most profound things he said is, as a competitor, you can only want goodness and strength and success for yourself when you want that for everybody around you, all of your competitors. You have to will them to be strong and will that for them. And only from your heart, when it comes from your heart, can you want that for yourself. And I really felt you have those little thoughts oh, maybe they'll get sick and I won't, or whatever. You don't want it to come true, but I'm human, I'm a competitor. And I just felt in Vancouver, it wasn't just me, it was us. And so many other girls from other nations. I remember in the 5,000 meters, there was a Danish skater who came second last place. She came up to me after and she was crying. She was like, Clara, your country is amazing. Nobody's ever cheered for me before. And they cheered for me the whole race. I felt like a champion. And I felt like we willed that on everybody. And then it brought us to incredible success.
I mean, you write about that, about how you have to wish for success for your competitors as well, and how you had to have that mental, you had to take the mental step of wishing good luck, even to skaters you were directly racing at, even to fellow Canadian athletes. And we don't have time to get into all of this, but one of the fascinating things in your book is even writing about this healthy competition that existed between you and your fellow Canadian skaters. I mean, Cindy Clausen's one that you name. Of course, we would always be cheering for the both of you, but I suppose we should have anticipated there was some, maybe not fair to say animosity, but some healthy competition.
Yeah, definitely. And I just feel like, especially in that whole, I mean, the 10-year era that I skated from 2000 to 2010, we had so much internal competition. We had all our different training groups with different coaches, and we supported each other, but we wanted to beat each other. And even like my closest training partner, Christina Groves, who I trained with, for 8 years. Like, I saw her more than I saw my husband. Like, we had the same level of intensity and focus and determination. We applied that to training, 2-3 times a day, year on and year after year. And when we got on the starting line, we would just do everything we could to beat each other. But we brought each other to a better place. We raised the level to make each other better. And that's how it was within the team. And I think that's why we had so much success. It was never, ever doing anything against one another, but it was doing everything we could to beat each other to make us all better. And that's what brought us to being the best in the world. And
Clara Hughes is our guest. Her new book, Open Heart, Open Mind. You write about your 2 bronze Olympic medals in cycling, your 2 bronze, your silver, and your gold in skating. You started off, though, setting the scene, talking about your family. I remember one line that just jumped off the page. You said, every Christmas, we'd get together and pretend, this is my paraphrase, but essentially pretend like we were a normal family. Yeah. You also write about having a conversation with Brian Williams. I mean, pardon me, Brian, oh my gosh, CBC's
with Brian
Williams, yeah, right? Am I thinking of the right guy? Yeah. Anyway, CBC's guy. And your parents are on the phone, and you're just hoping that your dad's not drunk on the phone. I mean, why was this important to include these details?
Well, because so many families struggle with addiction issues, and it's something that is so hard to talk about. My father passed away just over 2 years ago, and he died of advanced dementia, and quite honestly, I couldn't have written this book if my dad was still alive, because it's so hard to talk about these things. But I know by being open about them, because so many of my struggles are rooted back into my dad's alcoholism and growing up in that environment that so affected our family in such a toxic, negative way, and it's such a destructive way, that without really fairly going into that, there was no way I could explain myself. But I also feel that it allows others to perhaps talk about this, maybe for the first time. And I'm not talking about writing a book or going out and, telling the world. It might be like talking to your counselor or your therapist or your friend about these kinds of issues. I mean, they're real. Addiction is something that is so powerful, and it's something that has followed me through my life as well. It's something that I have to be super careful with alcohol in my life, because I have a hereditary, I can potentially that can unfold in my life, and it has manifested at different times. With alcohol, not so much drugs, because luckily I have such a bad reaction with drugs that, and believe me, I experimented with a lot of them, that it's just not something I went into. But these are real social issues in this book, and they're my history and my story and my life. But I felt that by sharing all of them and just opening it all up, that it might give the courage for others to do the same. And I guess maybe in a selfish way, it's just a part of my own healing, is putting it out there and then not holding it inside anymore. There's so much I talk about in this book that's so personal, with struggling with eating disorders, struggling with body image, all of those things that are real to me to this day, and those are things I've always held inside. I've written about over the decades in my own journals, but I've never talked publicly about, and it's really difficult.
One of the bombs you drop in your book is a positive test in a doping test in 1984, positive for ephedrine. You've gone on the record, as have those who have been close to you throughout your career, saying that You don't know what's up with the test. You don't know why you tested positive. A lot of people are saying that this, to a certain extent, is tarnishing your legacy a little bit. Do you feel that way, or why was it important to put that in the book?
Yeah, because it's a fact. It's part of my history. It's part of my past, and you only have one chance to present your story, really, in this kind of context. And to leave something like that out, I don't think it would be fair to everything else that I'm bringing in an honest way. So I guess I felt I had no choice but to put it in there. And it's been interesting because there is, a CBC piece done on it before the book, and that's where it was exposed. And some people told me after, they're like, yeah, some people think you're just trying to make money off of this. That's why you put it in there. And this book is a charitable initiative. It was always my intention to give all the money to charity, and I'm not keeping a dime. So, to go through this humiliation would definitely, it wouldn't be worth it. Is that the word you'd use?
Have people been humiliating you?
No, but I feel that. I feel that this is to me, this is really, really hard. This is something that I was so careful through my whole career and stood for fair play and stood for fair sport and never tried to hurt or impede anybody. I worked so hard. I trained so hard. I was in very, very hard, grueling endurance sports and took pride in my work ethic, in my approach, in my professionalism. And this is something that, I was suspended for 3 months because it was ephedrine, it was cough medicine. It was, what's considered in the whole scheme of things a minor substance. But it's something that came up in my urine sample from the 94 World Championships, and that I can't, that's the fact. And I give that. And if you put it into context, at the time, how it was handled was within the rules. I was given the support from my federation that they were not going to release the information, and they my coach advised me not to tell anyone because they'll use it against me. And I didn't. That was a time when I was a young athlete trying to make an Olympics, trying to get through in this grueling world, in this sport that was so cruel that made me feel like garbage even when I won, struggling with eating disorders, struggling with a negative, toxic coaching environment, struggling with everything I was running away from home, from family. And then this happened, and honestly, it just knocked me down to a level where I just felt like I was festering inside, and I didn't know how to handle it. If I look back, and I can't tell you that I was like, I should have made a better decision. I was not capable of making a decision at that time. So I felt that I had one chance to get it out, and I really had no choice but to put it in here. But if, believe me, it's not, it's...
Did it feel good to just get it out there?
It does, because it's no longer inside, and I'm no longer worried that someone's going to come out and say, this happened. But at the same time, it's like, it just still is. I just still can't believe that happened.
I can see it on your face right now.
And, when I look at it, it's, in some ways, it would have been easier to just say, I took cough medicine. I made a mistake. That's a lot more understandable and acceptable than I don't know.
Because, people are picturing needles and big complex blood doping operations and things like that. Clara, we're going to run out of time. I can't ignore the incredible work that you're doing right now with the Bell Let's Talk campaign. As mentioned, you're a huge advocate for the program's right to play and take a hike. You've brought conversations about mental health awareness into the mainstream here. I'm going to head to the text line here. A listener has a question for you.
Okay.
As a man who feels like he's suffering in silence with depression and has no outlet to deal with it, no time to take for himself, no avenue to pursue without stigmas, a man who's worried about taking pills as a solution, what can a person do on their own to combat the highs and lows?
First of all, I think this is, there's so much in those lines. Worrying about taking pills as a solution. We live in a society that makes people feel if they're dealing with and they have a form of mental illness that they should worry about being judged by taking medication. We don't live in a world where a diabetic feels shame because they have to inject insulin to survive, to cope with their illness. We don't live in a society that judges someone that has to have chemotherapy treatment or radiation treatment so they can live and survive and cope with their cancer. But we live in a society that judges people, and we judge ourselves to think, I may need medication for my illness. I was not someone who yet has needed medication, But I know so many people who a medication has saved their life, has gotten their life back to a place where they can begin using therapy, using psychotherapy, using all of these other options of treatment and healing that are out there. So I just encourage you to not think about that. Please change your way of thinking and know that you should not be feeling these things. You should feel that you have the right, and you do deserve to get help and proper treatment and not feel any shame in needing it because you're sick, and that's okay, and it's life and it's your reality. And please go and find help.
I've just made eye contact with your publicist and asked if I can keep you here for 5 more minutes. Can I?
Yeah.
News is coming up, and then more of your questions with the incredible Clara Hughes. Our guest in studio, we're now into overtime. Is there a cycling or a speed skating equivalent of overtime? There's no such thing, is there? There's not extra laps?
Both sports were, at least my version's time trial, and long distance, long track speed skating was really boring. I'm sorry.
I was surprised to see you put into words what I've always thought in my own internal dialogue, looking at long distances. I mean, you won gold, of course, in Turin in the 5,000 meters, and I've always thought, like, that has no appeal to me. My entire body would be screaming. But then you write about how you even dreaded it the day of.
Yeah, man. And you know what? Like, now that I haven't speed skated since I finished my race in Vancouver, since I crossed the line and skated a lap and then got off, that's the last time I had 17-inch blades on my feet, and I don't want to do it either. It's too hard.
Do you have to do that as an elite athlete? Do you have to walk away and leave it? You can't.
I think it depends on your sport. Like, the bike is something I'll always have, and I'll always hop on hockey skates. But to get in the speed skating position, no.
On the text line, the listener says, "Great guest this morning, Clara Hughes. I'd vote for her." Any political aspirations?
No, not at all. And quite honestly, I feel like I have a better role outside of the political realm because I don't want to be limited to blue or red. You know what I mean? I kind of want to, and I also want to keep my feet on the ground. I love all the work I get to do with Right to Play, with Youth at Risk, with all the different programs, all the mental health advocacy work. I just want to stay deeply connected, and I unfortunately feel that when you enter politics, you have to change yourself, and you get less done.
A listener shared on the text line, don't apologize. We need impact makers in every area of society.
And I would be destroyed. I am not that tough, and my skin is really thin.
Oh, give me a break. So. You shared your thoughts, a gentleman, and for those just listening, just tuning in right now, we're talking to Clara Hughes, author of Open Heart, Open Mind. A gentleman shared with you his own mental health journey, and you shared some words with him before we headed to break, and then during the break you said, gosh, though, I really don't like giving advice. How come?
Oh, because, I really, as much as I've been able to talk about my struggles, I'm the exception to the rule. Like, our system is so broken when it comes to resources, access to resources, to care and treatment of people dealing with mental health issues, dealing with these illnesses, living with these illnesses. It is so underfunded, the system, that I meet so many people who have pursued help, or families who have pursued help for their children, their loved ones, and have been so frustrated because it's so broken. And we have so much that we need to improve upon. I know that I'm the exception to the rule because I was an athlete. And even when I was struggling, I had all the support there because people wanted to realistically bring me back to win. I mean, I had the potential to win for my sports, for my country. And so you're given all this support and care, and you're accepted back. And in a lot of ways, the advocacy work I've done, it has been so meaningful for me and I think impactful in terms of helping to break down the stigma. But at the same time, I'm like, I am not the face for mental illness. I am not the face for this because I'm the exception to the rule because of how I've been treated and how I've been received. And that's not the case for most people. We have so far to go. And it's so amazing to get a message like that. Someone who is so brave to write that and to ask those questions. And all I can say is don't give up. And we really need to start screaming out loud. There's an election coming up. Where is mental health on the topic? Where is mental health on the platform? Where is healthcare on the platform? It hasn't even been discussed yet.
Is there one area of deficiency that you look at and say, this is the most glaringly obvious one, but it's also one where we could immediately make an impact? Is there sort of I don't want to call it an entry-level issue, but an approachable issue that could be addressed?
100%. I mean, if you look at what is covered by our insurance, by our provincial insurance, psychotherapy is not covered. You can be prescribed all the medications that may or may not work, but if that's not combined with some kind of talk therapy, some kind of other form of therapy or therapies, there's no one single solution. It's not just taking medication and then all of a sudden you're better. It is going to help a lot of people, and it does profoundly help a lot of people. And for a lot of people, it is their lifeline, but it has to be combined with other things. So having psychotherapy covered in our healthcare, having it covered and available to people who are dealing with these illnesses, that is the first step. And the Globe and Mail did a fantastic piece on these are the steps that can be taken immediately to make things better, and that was one of them, and I totally agree.
Fans of yours will be interested to know you've just completed a 4.5-month journey, a personal journey.
Yeah, on the Appalachian Trail. There's like this movie out. I saw it 2 days ago, Ryan. I said to you, called A Walk in the Woods. The book is great by Bill Bryson. The movie was horrible. I just finished that trail. I walked 3,500 kilometers, Georgia to Maine, solo. 2/3 of it was completely alone. My trail name's Red Feather. My husband Peter's trail name was Windwalker. And it was the most profound thing for me personally right now, because I've been married for 19 years with a man who has walked the Pacific Crest Trail, the Continental Divide, and I always dreamed of doing a thru hike, and I finally did it, and it was so hard but so great, and I felt I came out of it knowing myself probably for the first time in my life, knowing who I am, not being
and this is from someone who stood on the podium at the Olympic Games.
Yeah, but you have all this extrinsic motivation and encouragement. And when I was on the trail, I was self-contained. I had everything in my backpack, and I was all alone. And I had to get to know myself better. So it was kind of great, and I'm still tired from it.
I bet you are. Yet here you are. You're fulfilling media obligations. You're out doing interviews, talking about your book, and in the meantime, you find out that your place in Utah has just about burned to the ground. This is just a couple of days old. I haven't heard anyone report this yet.
Oh, no, it's not news, really.
It depends who you talk to.
It was news in Utah because, our canyon, we live in the backcountry. In our canyon, there's about 50 houses, and a mile from our house, there was an altercation with the police, and the man trying to get away lit his T-shirt on fire and threw it in underbrush to create a distraction. And 5 acres were burning because it's so dry. And then they evacuated our canyon, and we're getting this news, and we're like, well, when it rains, it pours. It's been a heck of a week, Ryan.
Unbelievable.
But they have it under control, and I think all the fires are going out in my life right now, so I'm grateful.
That's a positive. I know you're also proud to call Canmore home. Of course, tonight you're going to be hanging out here in Edmonton at the Indigo South Edmonton Common. The book signing starts at 7 o'clock p.m. And like you said, an opportunity for people to come up, grab an autograph, and dive into this brand new publication.
Come and say hi.
Can I read you a couple things to try to get your face to match your hair right now?
Yeah, sure,
to try to turn your face as red as possible. A listener here out of Millet, Alberta, says, Clara is on the same level as Terry Fox.
Oh.
They're both at the top when it comes to trying to make a difference. Another, Sean, says, I loved your ride last year. I love what you're doing. Keep it up. Much love your way. Mark says, all I will say is way to go, Clara. I'm so proud of you. Barb says, Clara Hughes is a hero. Absolutely awesome. Another listener, this is Reggie, says you're a true Canadian role model. I've followed all of your Olympic Games, summer and winter, and I can't wait to get into your book.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Clara Hughes, thank you for being here.
My face is very red right now.
I can attest to that.
Thanks, Ryan.
Pick it up. The book, Open Heart, Open Mind. Find out where that phrase comes from. Who first told that to Clara, and what it meant to her in her athletic career and her personal journey as well.